Hey guys, this is John, and I'm playing Impaler in the 5-minute pool on ICC. I'm going with my usual repertoire, the Scandinavian, and we're playing the Queen D8 line. I'm writing a repertoire on this. I've mentioned that in a couple videos. It's for Chessable, which you guys are going to be hearing more about very soon. This is a line that I actually looked at recently, and I think I'm going to, let's first play c6, but I'm going to put the bishop on f5 against this line. I discovered that this line is kind of interesting despite its innocuous appearance. You more often see the g3 treatment against queen a5, but it makes sense against queen d8 as well because it's a positional line. White is hoping that in the long term, this light square bishop has some great influence on this diagonal. One thing I discovered in creating this repertoire is that it's in black's best interest to try to play bishop f5 and then h6 to give the bishop a square to retreat to on h7. Previously, a lot of times I've played bishop g4, but that often results in white being able to achieve the trade of this knight for that light square bishop. This is also an interesting idea, knight e2, getting out of the way so that white can advance the c-pawn. It makes a lot of sense, or at least I think that's what white's usually up to. Okay, so let's just play knight bd7 as normal. They can play c4 and try to gain some space in the center. Maybe I'll throw in bishop b4. Okay, they're just going to choose a more restrained setup here. Possibly knight d5 makes sense now. Let's do that. Grandmaster Impaler. I was watching one of Christoph's videos the other day, and he was talking about Impaler, and he says, why does this guy have such a dark name? Why can't he be like Grandmaster Little Miss Sunshine or something? I got a chuckle out of that. Okay, so he's clearly angling for the e5 square. I'm going to play rook c8 and then try for c5 should white execute this plan. The position might open up a little bit, but I should be reasonably prepared for that. And I've kept my light square bishop. That ought to be helpful. Who is Impaler? I'm not sure who this player is. They're anonymous. Okay, a3, so white is playing a little game of cat and mouse, maybe? Letting me play c5 if I want? I mean, their argument, I guess, is that c5 is no achievement for me. And sometimes you do have to be careful of this, but you know what? I'm going to go for it. Let's see what you got, Mr. Impaler. With my rook on c8, this is the logical pawn break. Sometimes you can leave the rook on a8 and try to play on the queen side, like a5, a4, but white has made some time-consuming moves, like this entire maneuver of the knight to d3 takes several tempi. So maybe I'm best off just going for this. I'm actually not too far away from them in rating. So I suspect that white will take on c5 and we'll trade a couple times, and then he'll play like knight e5 or something like that. But I will get an attack on f2 in that case. h3, so again, white playing a little slower. So I can take here, they take. Then my bishop's under attack, but is like bishop h7 or bishop g6 at all bad? Doesn't appear to be that way. Can also play queen b6 and try to ratchet up the pressure a little bit. Maybe rook e8 is helpful. Or some sort of semi-waiting move. Yeah, I'm going to make a semi-waiting move, a6, and just bide my time. White doesn't seem to have any sense of urgency either, so I think I can do this, no problem. It can be a good strategy in Blitz if you're able to pick some moments to play moves like h3, where he kind of threw the ball back in my court and said, here, like, you think about what happens if these pawns get traded. And he's just going to react instead. Okay, so now we have some action going on, c4. Now I can play the knight here. I can also just play the knight back to f6, whereupon we're probably getting some trades. Yeah, let's play the knight back to f6. b6 would attack the pawn, but the knight appeared awkward there for some reason. So d4. Okay, so if I take d3, take again, or let's say start with take d4, knight takes, bishop takes, queen takes, knight c5. They have queen e3. Maybe I'm not getting anywhere. That weakens some stuff, though, if I do that. Maybe it's all right. Okay, let's try it. We're going to wage some warfare on the queen side. I'm a little worried that they might get a passed A pawn eventually, but this could be okay. So let's keep the trades flowing. I'm going to let them trade queens if they want because that assists my development. Yeah, so now there's this majority on the outside I got to be concerned about. But knight e4 attacking f2 could be good. Or maybe even rook b3, come in and hit this pawn. I like my activity here. I definitely like that. All right, so if we take and then play knight d5, we're getting some nice squares. Take knight d5. I don't know, though. I don't want to take and play rook c2, but he has a4 at the end of that line. I'm actually going to retain this bishop. I think it might be helpful in attacking here. And if a4, I'm going to play a5 and try for maybe bishop into c2. This might be a foolhardy decision, though. We'll find out. Kind of is looking that way. Okay, so b4. Yeah, b4 is no good. He's hitting this and this. Both are under attack. Knight d5, maybe. That doesn't do the trick either. I instantly regret my decision. Oh, boy. Okay. Let's play for activity. We got to do something. Yeah, bishop f8 was too fancy. No doubt about it. Minute to about 2 minutes left. Let's pre-move this. This a-pawn could be tough to stop. I'll tell you that right now. I might have to stick a knight in on e4 at some stage to do it. Assuming that a trade happens here. This bishop I'm worried about because it controls the queening square, a8. Bishop d3 now? He has bishop d2. What to do? All right, we're going b4. I know he can play a4 against this, but got to make something happen, right? Okay, let's do this at least. Get the bishop on a good diagonal. Try to control this square. Okay, we're going here, and then I'm going to sack on c4, I think. And hope that the b pawn gives me enough counterplay. So my bishop is controlling b1. That's kind of nice. Let's go here. Attack c4. I could have played b2, but I think he was going to play rook b1 then. That might not have been bad for him. Complicated. Not sure who to favor here with limited time. I kind of wonder if he could just keep pushing like he's doing. Okay, now we got to do this. I think that's pretty clear. Okay, so let's do this. He's going to get that pawn all the way to a7. But you know what I can do? I can do this. And at least try to eliminate that and then go after the pawn. Okay, so let's take... he might be just winning, though. I think he is. Yeah, I don't think I can do much now. All right, I'll just play bishop c5, but after rook d8, I'm going to have to resign. Yeah, he's queening the pawn. All right, so we go down against the Impaler. Out of the opening, I think we were fine. I think the position right around here is okay. He wasn't showing like a whole lot of ambition. He was just kind of developing and waiting for the situation to clarify itself. If there's one move I wish I could take back, it's bishop f8. That was way too fancy. I missed knight d4 for one thing, but I was thinking like my bishops could be useful in attacking the white queen side, like stuff like bishop c2, but yeah, after knight d4, I think this position just starts going in white's favor. But let's go back and have a look. So queen d8 Scandinavian, and then white played pretty modestly with g3. And as I was discussing, I think it's important for black to try to retain the light square bishop in this line. I didn't used to think this way, but in working on this repertoire and doing a lot of research into the types of middle games that result, this is one conclusion I came to in this line, is that if possible, black should play bishop f5 and then h6 and ensure that a knight h4 move could always be successfully met by bishop h7. Then I thought with knight e2, white would be trying for c4 and then put the knight back on c3. Even though that loses some time, that's good for them. That's a favorable construction to have with the knight in back of the c-pawn. And maybe later white can play for d5. I still think black's okay there, but instead they played knight f4 and put the pawn on c3 instead. Okay, so I'm going to load the engine up right about here. Yeah, the engine says the position is roughly equal. Knight d5, so queen c7 also comes to mind. I like knight d5 because it offers them a trade. Usually this structure is pretty good for black if a trade does take place on d5. I had a game against Greg Shahadi in the Chess.com Streamers Challenge that featured a structure like this, I think out of a Scandinavian. And I played for the minority attack b5, b4, and white is lacking a plan in these structures oftentimes, whereas black can just push on the queen side. But instead, knight d3 was played. Rook c8. Seems all right. a3. Yeah, it looked like white was employing like a waiting strategy with these a3, h3 type moves. Maybe trying to get me to burn time on the clock. And I think he's trying to get me to take so he can take with his knight and thereby attack the bishop and also open his own bishop. Maybe this isn't devastating or anything, but that's the plan as far as I can tell. And pushing c4 will close the position a bit, and then he gets to like jump in here, for instance. This also might not be bad, but I didn't want to close the queen side unnecessarily. So I kept the tension. Yeah, b5 also comes to mind. I saw that on the computer eval. But a6 seems fine, just kind of waiting. c4, and now I played the knight back here. He played b3. The engine approves of my moves, a lot of them. b5, take, d takes. And now I took on c5. Instead, it wants to take here and then play knight takes. Maybe just to go after b3, quite simply. Let's say a trade takes place now. Yeah, this might be good for black with my activity. Maybe that's what I have to do. I have to attack the queenside pawns quicker if I can. If b4, probably knight coming in here. And then these pawns are stopped. White can't get a4 in without weakening b4. So that helps a lot. But I got to believe knight takes c5 even is fine too. Like this position looks completely normal. Yes, I have to worry about the queen side a bit, but I think my bishop f8 move is the start of my problems. Yeah, that seems to be the case. So I thought about a lot of stuff. I mean, I thought about taking and then playing like a rook into c2 or knight d5. With knight d5, though, I thought he would play rook e2. And then if, say, knight c3, just bring the rook behind the pawn. It seemed to me like white slowly is going to get a4 in, but that might not be the case. What else could I do here? Knight d5. The engine wants bishop e4 as well. So maybe creating an opponent to that light square bishop on g2. Yeah, it's important not to give up control of d4 unnecessarily. That much is clear to me. And after knight d4, it kind of dawned on me that I had made a mistake. So I tried to play actively to compensate. Knight d5 is the engine recommendation. But what if knight takes b5 then? This is what I was worried about. Take. F takes e3. What if rook takes? Rook d2, and black has compensation. Maybe because bishop c... Whoa, that's not a way the bishop can move. Maybe because bishop c5 is coming, attacking the rook and also the pawn on f2. b4. Yeah, somehow the engine shows compensation, but in a blitz game, I would definitely prefer white in those connected A and B pawns up the pawn. Even if bishop f8 is somehow okay and I can survive after knight d4, it was still the wrong decision because I lost my momentum. And the initiative shifted over to white. It was hard for me to regain it. I wasn't successful in doing so. And here, knight takes f5 was very good for him. Take, and a4 and just push. And look at these bishops. They can help shepherd that a pawn up the board. I would assume if rook takes b3, white's just going to push right on by. And this pawn is worth its weight in gold. It's sprinting for the touchdown. Yeah, I'm going to have a hard time stopping that pawn without material loss. And note that my bishop is never like participating in defending against the pawn's advance. So here I could play bishop d3. I thought about that. I thought he might actually play bishop d2 though, trying to force my rook away from guarding. And then that leaves d4 undefended, but this is winning for white. But apparently on bishop d2, I can just play rook back. And if he takes, I take here. And suddenly white has the awkward pieces. Yeah, we're getting lower on time though, so mistakes are creeping in. After this, quite simply, it was hard to stop the a-pawn. I still have chances, according to the computer, but I'm not sure my exchange sacrifice was leading to too much. Rook c8 might be a mistake, so I should play b2 directly. I was trying to hold off on that move in hopes of winning the c-pawn. But, okay, here, bishop b4, another precise move. Attacking the rook, hitting the pawn. I would assume if a6, then I can take here. Yeah, and then I'm probably just winning after this. I can stop this a-pawn. Yeah, and black should win the game. But I played rook c8, and white just kept on pushing. a6 here. Yeah, and I think it's out of reach now. Because even though I get behind the pawn, rooks belong behind passed pawns usually in an attempt to stop them. a7, and this pawn is too well protected by both the knight and the bishop. I tried knight d5, but looks like rook d2 is a good reply. Trade, and now the rook is coming in with this. I probably should have tried bishop e7 at least to keep this out, but yeah, he can even play the rook here, and same problem. My bishop can't help out. And once that rook hits c8, he promotes the pawn, and that'll cost me a rook. So, what conclusions can be drawn from this one? I think the opening went fine. That's good news for the Scandi. This is not going to refute the Scandi by any means. Our position was good. And in fact, after white had made a lot of these slow moves like a3, h3, b3, we're doing well. b5 was good. Yeah, and right here, it looks like that line, bishop takes d3, queen takes d3, knight takes c5 would be the most direct. And I just didn't properly deal with the queenside pawns, and bishop f8, even if it doesn't totally swing the game into decisive territory for white, it's still a mistake. That was just a misjudgment, and I realized that shortly after I played it. So, this position's complex, though, as you saw with the fact that we were soon trading mistakes. Intriguing game, nonetheless. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And I'll be back again soon with another video. Talk to you guys later. Bye.